ask everyone to stand up. Ruth, are you doing the invocation tonight? Yes, so Ruth will get us started with an invocation.
Lord, we thank you for the opportunity to be here, and thank you for the peace, the relative peace that we're enjoying here as a nation. And as per your instruction, we pray for the peace of Israel, of Jerusalem, and we pray for Bernie and his recovery and his illness. Help him to feel our presence and, more importantly, your presence, and just your hand of healing on him. So go with us through this evening. We ask you to remind us to support our legislators and to fill them with your Holy Spirit as they're making their decisions on our behalf. Everything is in the name of Jesus Christ, our Redeemer. Amen.
Amen.
And then please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag's right here. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let me take your seats. And we get started with a little story. Shelley, you can come on up.
Who are you?
Okay. Mike asked that I introduce myself. My name is Eric Hermes. I live in Campbell County near Cold Spring. And I've been involved with the Tea Party since pretty much the beginning. So that's why I get stuck up here. But I do have a little story tonight. There's near the Capitol building in Washington, there is a little fruit stand. And the young man that was working there put a sign up in front of the fruit stand, and it said, melons, $2 a piece, 4 for $10. So, just so happened, Nancy Pelosi was walking by and saw a sign. It's a true story. She saw the sign and said, young man, your sign is wrong. It shouldn't be 4 melons for $10. It should be 5 melons for $10. And he said, no ma'am, that sign is correct. It's $2 a piece, 4 for $10. And she said, well, I'll show you. She took $10 out, put it in his hand, and took 10 melons and walked away. And then his coworker said, you know, your sign is wrong. And he said, I know, but before I put the sign up, she would only buy one at a time. Okay. We've got a great meeting tonight. But before we get started, Jan would like to say a few things, a few announcements.
Really quick, Bernie is going to have his surgery on Friday. I don't know what time on Friday. It is dependent on the results of his stress test today, but he said he passed it with flying colors because he's smart. I've seen him a lot in the last 8-9 days he's been in the hospital. He looks the best he's ever looked in the hospital to me. And so I'm thinking this is going to be a good surgery for him. This is a sternum, but they're not taking out the whole sternum. They're only taking out just a resection, so it's much less than what they were talking about. The other thing is that we are having sine waves for Cameron and for the election from 4 to 6 starting tomorrow. So Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at the corner of 42 and Mole Road. We have the signs ready for you. We just need some people to show up. I mean, it is better if we have people. Kathy Flagg's going to be there with a couple grandkids. I'll be there. And then if you guys can help fill in, you don't have to come for the whole 2 hours. If you have a half hour, if you have 15 minutes after work, whatever you've got, we'll take. So that's in the corner, 42 and Mole Road, 4 to 6. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And the weather's supposed to be getting warmer every day. Thank you.
Okay, one other announcement. I'm going to start the can over here. Please don't feel obligated to put something in, but every cent helps. So we do have expenses. This is a free meeting. And the other thing I want to mention before we get started is please act respectfully. I mean, we don't typically have problems, but I just want to say that, no shouting out, and act like adults, and we'll have a very good meeting. Especially the legislature.
I'm back in heat.
I'm actually saying it for you guys, not for them.
Get a couple of shoes. Hang in there. We're gonna be respectful tonight.
Okay, so, well, since Steve is closest to me, we'll start with Steve, and I'm just gonna ask each one of you to stand up, introduce yourself, and what the position that you have and the area that you represent.
So my name is Stephen Doan. I'm the state representative for House District 69. I represent right here, across the street. I don't represent though, so don't blame me for that. But House District 69, I have Erlanger, Ellesmere, parts of Independence, a little bit of Crestview Hills, 2 voters in Edgewood that didn't vote for me. They're both Democrats. And then I've got Florence that I share out there. Thank you.
My name is John Schickel. I serve in the Senate. I represent the birthplace of the Liberty Movement, Boone County. And I represent almost all of it except for Verona and Walton.
My name is Senator Shelley Funke-Frohmeyer. I represent the northeast corner of Kenton County, which is really just Covington, and all of Campbell County, all of Pendleton County, and all of Bracken County, and perhaps the birthplace of the Tea Party. And I'm not buying what you're selling.
Good evening, I'm Mark Hart. I represent the 78th House District, which is all of Pendleton County. I've got 3 precincts in southern Campbell County. I've got 8 precincts in like the southern portion of Kenton County that goes from Independence all the way down to the Pendleton County line. And then I have 3 precincts in Boone County, which is in the Walton, Kensington area. So I'm the only Northern Kentucky rep that represents all 3, Kenton, Campbell, and Boone, plus Pendleton County. So I like to think of myself as a quintessential Northern Kentucky guy. But I'm the newest guy that's representing this area with my district, because my district used to be mainly Central Kentucky with Harrison and Scott County and all of them. So I'm going into my 2nd term representing you guys, and I'm loving every minute of it. NKU grad, so I'm very familiar with Northern Kentucky, and glad to be here with you guys.
Steve Rawlings, District 66, Representative Steve Rawlings. I got Burlington, Hebron, Rabbit Hash, Bellevue Bottoms, Petersburg, so I'm the very northernmost representative in all of the House, and maybe the Senate too. Furthest north bordering the Ohio River. So it's a mostly rural district, a lot like southern Kentucky is. It's unlike some of the other areas that some of these guys have. Well, you have kind country, and you have kind country. Yeah, but it's surprisingly rural, a lot of land down by the river, up by the river. Yeah, it's north, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you all. Thank you all for taking the time to be here today. And what we're gonna do is we'll go in the same order again. You don't have to stand up, but I'm gonna ask each person to talk about what's important, what things that you see that are important that are coming up in the upcoming legislative session, what bills you're sponsoring, what potential bills we should be watching out for, and just basically your overall view. And we'll just work right on down the line, starting with Steve.
So I'm a freshman representative. I'm going to be starting my 2nd term here, coming in. One of the things that sponsored legislation that I plan on introducing, I'm going to introduce a bill that I introduced last session. It's an occupational licensing reform bill. So what it would allow is it allow reciprocity among the states. So if you're a hairdresser, a doctor, an architect, whatever it is from Ohio or from any other state, and you want to move here to Kentucky, and you want to get that occupational license in a quick fashion and in a relatively less costly fashion, you can go ahead and do that here. That's what my bill would do. Ohio has already passed this bill. Indiana has a similar bill to it. Missouri's passed it. Virginia's passed it. So we're lagging behind our counterparts there on that bill. I'm trying to decide how I want to approach this session. You know, I was on a call with a couple of legislators yesterday, and if you don't know me or know what I did last session, I fought leadership just about as much as I could and did everything I could to represent, the interest of you all and the interest of the people. And as a result of it, I was taken off all my committees but one there at the end of session. And on the call yesterday, we were discussing that leadership had been calling around our county party chairman and trying to find primary opponents for us because they don't want us down there anymore. We have almost reached here, we definitely reached it in northern Kentucky, and it's growing around the state. We've almost reached a critical mass where we can really start to influence policy. And so I'm not looking at filing a whole bunch of bills. Maybe I'll file 60 bills, maybe I'll file 1 or 2. But the intent of filing those bills is to make sure that we are pushing ourselves in a conservative direction. I'm really looking forward to having Daniel Cameron as our governor. One downside to having Daniel as our governor is that now we're going to allow for a squishier middle. Having Andy as a boogeyman is a good thing because we can say we're the true conservatives, we're pushing a conservative policy, and you've got somebody out looking at the left. So it's going to be important when we get down there with Daniel as our governor that we continue to push that conservative agenda, that we work to fight back against the administrative state. You talk about, Ernie Fletcher was our governor, who's the first Republican governor in about 100 years, and he got taken out by the administrative state. And so we've got to find a way that we as a legislature can push back against that, to limit it, to cut it down, so that when our governor goes down there, he's successful and he has control and he has power. So that's what I'm looking at this session.
My name is John Schickel, and before I get started, I have to leave at 7 o'clock, so I didn't want you to think that I was being rude, but I do have another thing I have to get to at 7 o'clock. I have been in the Senate for, this is my 15th, I'll be starting my 16th year, so I've been around a while, and I was in public service before that. I've really been in public service my whole life. And I'm here to tell you that these new members in the Senate and the House are doing a great job. I've seen a lot of good folks come and go over the years, and contrary to what a lot of people believe, most of the people my associates are real good folks, even the ones I disagree with. They're good, honest folks trying to do the job to the best of their ability. But this crew we got now, representing Northern Kentucky, is truly a conservative group of people representing the values of my community. And we haven't always had that, so it's really good, and I'm really happy to see it. I've passed a lot of bills over the years, but I don't really worry much anymore about passing bills. I'm more concerned about, number one, killing bills, because there's plenty of bad bills to kill. So I'm more on the proud to kill bills than I am to pass bills. We need less government, not more government. There ought to be a law for every bill you pass, you got to repeal 5. So I don't measure my success on bills being passed. There are some general themes, though, that I'm very concerned about, and one of them is process. We talk about bills, but we don't talk about process. But there's been some things going on in the legislature that concern me because it's about the process of governing, and I'm going to give you a few examples. Just this year, we lost the ability to pre-file bills. Why is that so important? Well, it's very important, especially if you have a bill that is not maybe that leadership doesn't like or the rest of the state doesn't like, because when you pre-file a bill early, that bill gets attention, and it's on the LRC website, so people that are for it and people who are against it can see that. So the bill is properly vetted during the interim. That's what we have an interim for. This year, for the first time in my memory, no pre-filed bills. That's a big loss for the process. I have talked to my leadership about it. I've told them I'm very concerned about it. I'm hoping they change it. I would encourage you to, because it really, groups like the Tea Party, it really hampers you because you don't know what's filed. Right. You hear rumors, but you don't know what's filed. So it's a very bad thing. The other thing is, and this is still going on in the House, and it was going on in the Senate, but we talked them into repealing it, where they don't have to assign bills to committee. It used to be, when I started out leadership, you had 8 days to assign a bill to a committee chairman. During COVID, COVID stopped everything. We quit doing that, both the House and the Senate. We raised hell about it in the Senate, and now, thank God, they are reassigning the bills to committee chairs after 8 days. But they're still doing that in the House. And that was one reason why Steve Rawlings and I are working on a bill together about key scholarship money for homeschoolers. And that was one reason why we couldn't get that bill passed, is we couldn't get it assigned to committee in the House. This is a transparency issue. Instead of keeping all the power at the top, it distributes the power to the members. And that's what we want. Two very important things. When I leave the Senate, I'll have bills that I pass and bills that I didn't pass. But the most important thing I can leave is the process, because that affects future generations. So ask your legislatures about the process and keep those two things in mind. The other thing, and I'll just say it real quick, I'm very concerned about soft on crime. I've been in the Senate 15 years, and I've seen the Republicans, not the Democrats, we control this, go soft on crime. Every single year, we do something else. And many Republicans have gone along with it, and you're going to hear me squawking about it every time we do. Thank you.
Yeah. So I've been fortunate. Today is my 304th day on the job. But who's counting? Woo! So the good news is I actually didn't know that was a process. So when I was trying to get my first Senate bill that was really focused on perinatal mental health and mood disorders, fairly quickly I became known as the senator that cares about wellness. So I reached out to the House and said, oh, I hope that you'll hear my bill. So I reached out to the leadership myself. I didn't really know that was inappropriate to do. So fortunately I got my bill heard, and I got my first Senate bill passed, Senate Bill 135. So in this legislative session, I'm hoping to carry that forward to another level, because mental health is becoming such a crisis, as we understand. But at the very beginning of life, when you're pregnant, you're expecting, even your spouse. We have plenty of spouses that build fences around the house, the husbands, and they're like, I don't know why I built a fence, but I know I got a baby coming and I'm scared to death. And we have become a little soft on crime. But Senator Schickel has been a great mentor, and he taught me that you have to Schickelize a bill. And so one of the things that he blessed me with early on was the opportunity to present freestanding birthing centers. We were able to get that moving along, and that's a piece of the certificate of need battle that we recognize we have to have reform, because we're not getting the care and the quality of outcomes that we need. Again, going back to moms, you're not acutely ill when you're pregnant, but you go to an acute care hospital to give birth. Does that make any sense? So I've had a lot of interaction with St. Elizabeth during the interim. So I do try to bring stakeholders to the table and say, all right, how are we going to work on this? So working with the freestanding birthing centers, the Birthing Coalition, the nurse midwives, the obstetricians, just trying to bring everyone to the table. So I will bring that back, and it has been Schickelized. We have been in Senator Schickel's Licensing and Occupation Committee, but it's an uphill battle. You kind of quickly realize. So I've got quite a bit of support on the House side. So my hope is, I think we'll get it passed through the Senate again, but we'll get it through the House as well, because we've got some very, very strong House support. And it's such a huge effort. But tying right into that, and keeping certificate of need kind of front and center, I want a black box or black label, and I actually chatted with Steve Doan about this a little bit to articulate my thinking. I want to black label vaccines. I think people are being recommended, forced, required to be vaccinated just to be in school or to be part of a sports program or something. And my oldest is 31 years old, but my baby's 13. And I've really seen some outcomes that are very difficult to pinpoint. Where did they come from? But likely they came from something that was added to their body, other than the good Southern cooking that I try to bring into my household. So that recognizing that we need informed consent, and that you can't really be informed if the doctors or the information that you're being provided you don't trust. So just really trying to work through this piece of that equation that gives us more medical freedom. And so it's going to be an exciting session, and that's just on the wellness side. But to me, education is a major issue. So we've got some big stuff coming with education. Just put on your seatbelt. It's going to be exciting, this next legislative session. We had about a 2-hour and 40-minute meeting today. It was only 2 hours and 15 minutes, but I didn't get out of there because I got trapped in my seat.
Almost 2:40.
Yeah, it was about 2 hours and 40 minutes. So a lot of good things coming, and candidly, everything I'm working on is because constituents have pressed pretty firmly. And that southern part of Campbell County, that Bracken County, that Pendleton County, it's a very rural area, but it's people that maybe want to be left alone a little bit. But they actually do need support. They need homeschooling support. They need homeopathic health support. They need support. They need a strong advocate on the Senate, and they've got a strong advocate on the House. And Mark and I are working together on some good stuff.
Before we get started, we didn't clap for Steve when he got done talking. So as you can tell, we all like to have a lot of fun. I'm working on several bills, but some of the bills that I'm working on right now are more administrative, like an EMS compact bill that I'm working on. I've been working on for several years at the Department of Defense to allow soldiers and military personnel and their families that are either traveling into Kentucky or moving into Kentucky because of their duty station changing to Fort Knox or Fort Campbell, or they're retiring from the military and they're moving back home, allow their military occupation licenses to reciprocate into Kentucky to where they don't have to jump through a lot of hoops or retake stuff. And we made some grounds on that, and it's been Schickelized. It will be in front of Senator Schickel's committee, but we've done a lot of, although we haven't passed the bill yet, we've done a lot of work, and I think this session we might be able to move it a little bit. The other, and that's an EMS related bill. I'm a retired, actually I think I'm the only licensed paramedic in the legislature, but I'm a retired firefighter and a paramedic from Lexington Fire Department. And so I get a lot of EMS bills. Another bill that we're working on is to allow paramedics and EMTs that are full-time to get the same incentive pay that our firefighters and policemen get. So they're kind of administrative bills, not a lot of controversy involved with them. But I do want to touch on one of the things that Senator Schickel brought up about the process. That's a bigger problem in the House, and I guess I've been there, I'm starting my 8th year in the House, and I've seen it both ways. Unfortunately, Representatives Dolan and Rawlings, they've only been exposed to this latest way. And Senator Schickel's absolutely right. It's not, our leadership has put rules, and we as the members of the caucus, we've agreed to some things that didn't transpire the way we thought they were going to, and it's basically, they're controlling, the 5 peoples in leadership are controlling everything. And that's not the way the government or the legislature is supposed to work. I'm one of them that, I'm not as outspoken as some, but I've had several tiffs with leadership, and I also lost a committee. I wasn't as bad as he was, because that's what he's doing.
He's our signature badge.
But the process with the bills, the way that was supposed to, we couldn't do pre-filed bills, but they were supposed to be on the website where people could still have access and see them, and that did not happen at all. And it's like we're agreeing to things, and then it's not transpiring. And there, with the last election, with my two colleagues up here and others around the state, the conservative movement or the conservative members of our caucus has grown to the point where we're probably going to be a little bit more vocal. We're going to have a little bit more strength, and I'm hoping that at the end of this next year we can have a complete change of leadership, because that's how we can get some of this stuff back. When we go and talk to our leaders, we're not always heard like they are over in the Senate. And I don't want to sit here and bash on the leadership, but these are just some facts that affects the way we operate or the way we can legislate and represent you guys. And the key thing is transparency. I mean, when I get a bill ready and I want to pre-file it, the whole reason I'm pre-filing it is so people can start looking at it. Not to just say, because if I didn't want people to look at it, I wouldn't pre-file it. I'd wait until January. Well, now we're being forced to wait till January with no avenue to get our bills out there. As far as, I mean, I can put it out on my own, but it's not an official. I want people to see what the official document looks like, what the official BR is, and so that'll be an issue that we will probably take up internally. Y'all probably might not hear a lot about it, but that's something that we're hoping to get resolved, just like the Senate did, so that we can get back to the old method. And you know, sometimes we all are afraid of change. Some change isn't bad, but sometimes if we don't watch what we're agreeing to, and if we don't really pay attention, it can come back and bite us. But when it does, we just gotta be ready to change it and then attack the issue. And I think you'll see that internally within our caucus. But I guess my biggest issue this year, like Shelley, Senator Fromeyer, I'm on the Appropriations and Revenue Committee. We got to get the budget out. That's our main thing. And so I've been going to a lot of budget meetings. And then one of the other things, one of the other committees that I've been working on that we've worked a lot with here this summer was the Veterans Military Affairs Public Protection Committee. And the two bills that I read, they will go through that committee, and then the one bill, because it's a licensing thing, will go to Senator Schickel's committee. But I've got some things moving. There's some other things I'm working on. I guess the one bill that I'm probably starting to ramble, so I'm gonna kind of make this real quick, but I want to mention, I'm working on a bill called the Frankie Huffman Act. Frankie is a personal friend of mine. He's an adult with special needs. He was the first person to come visit me when I got elected in 2017 in my office. But I remember, he was younger than me, but I remember him from school. And so we had a really good first meeting. We've stayed in touch, and he does a lot of advocacy for people with disabilities. And we've put together a bill that would define the rights of adults and people with special needs, to give a little bit more teeth so that they're a little bit more protected. One of the main issues that really got me listening to him talk about, you know, he's got some physical disabilities, but he's of sound mind. And he says a lot of times I don't even get the opportunity to make my own decisions because I'm not looked on as an adult. And when he explained that to me, I said, well, let's do something about it. And we've worked this bill for this will be the third session now. Actually, no, it'll be the fourth session. We started in 2020, but of course with the shutdown and everything, we didn't get to move anything. And then we worked it through the committees a little bit, and we've rewritten it and put a little bit more teeth. A friend of mine who's a constitutional attorney looked at it and really helped me out. So that's kind of my personal agenda there, my pet peeve that I want to get through. So I'll be working real hard on that one this session.
Amen.
One of the rules we have a problem with is the one in the House that every bill goes to Committee on Committees, and then the Speaker decides if it moves forward. So one person in the state of Kentucky has the authority to stop or move things forward, and that's just wrong. So that's something that needs to be looked at. So I've got 9 bills that I'm working on, and I feel like it's my calling or my place to be something of a conduit for the people, we the people. So I get a lot of my ideas from the people. So, for instance, Stacey Earle and Jill gave me some information from the schools on what's going on. So I'm working on a Childhood Privacy Protection Act. So got some good information from Jill last night. I'm incorporating it in the bill. And so leadership probably is not happy with the person that has 9 bills filed, but I just feel that's what I'm supposed to do, and I'm going to keep on writing them and keep on moving ahead with them. And John Penn sent me something one time when I first was getting involved, and it was on Kentucky sovereignty. It's under the nullification concept. So I want to read this to you. So I filed this is a resolution. It's reaffirming Kentucky sovereignty. That's under the 10th Amendment, states' rights. So just to give you an idea where my heart's at here. Whereas the citizens of the Commonwealth do not consent to any action by the executive or judicial branches that purports to enact law or cede authority or sovereignty to any global organization, including but not limited to the World Health Organization, United Nations, World Economic Forum, International Money Fund, World Bank Group, or any other international organization of which the United States is a member, or the facilitation and use of global digital passports or a central bank digital currency. We've had a lot of meetings. There should be a bill on mRNA that we've met with Thomas Renz, an attorney that maybe some of you recognize. And so there should be an mRNA bill, and there should be a CBDC bill, central bank digital currency bill, other than what I have said here. So the group of us are working on that. So another thing is the Kentucky Department of Education. So I've got a bill to update these statutes and to, it's like a cleanup bill, but I'm getting some things in it that we want in there, like that we're a representative constitutional republic, not a democracy. So it's just stuff like that. And then I was working on a bill for diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI, and Jennifer Decker is working on, it was about identical bill, so I'm going to join her. But anyway, the bill's being worked on for diversity, equity, inclusion to end that in the Department of Education. And then there's also on the collegiate level too, on the university level, there's like 6-8 states that have done that. I didn't realize it, but they've eliminated diversity, equity, inclusion in the university and state-run universities. And so that's another thing that's being looked at. There should be a bill on that also on the university level. So anyway, that's enough for now. But I got a bunch of bills. I've been working hard on them. Sometimes I question, why am I doing this? Are they going anywhere? But we had a good hearing today in education. And people seem to be supportive of the KEYS money for homeschoolers and non-certified schools like private schools, Christian schools, some Catholic schools, and everybody seemed very receptive. So we're hoping to get Senator Schickel's bill through. So I'm running a version in the House. So that hearing went really well today.
And I'd like to welcome Jay.
Yeah, sorry.
Jay, everyone has introduced himself, and talked about what areas they represent, and then talked about bills that they are either introducing or supporting, and things that are giving us a heads up of what we should be watching out for in the next legislative session. And would you do the same?
Okay, yeah. So I'm Jay Williams, Franklin, Owen, Carroll, Gallatin, Southern Boone, and Southwest Kent. So 6 counties, it's a long way.
Praise the Lord.
And I was in Frankfort today, and I'm sorry I'm late. My car was in the shop, and I didn't get it out. Went right from here on that. So I've got a number of things I'm working on. One of them is technology. I'm chairman of a new technology committee we're looking at. It's not very exciting stuff. It's things like cybersecurity. The exciting thing might be broadband for rural areas, where we're working on trying to make sure we get that out to people. But a couple of the other I just had them up here. So, I don't have my list here. I got my list to do. So a couple of the other things I'm working on. I've got a bill to put 6 words back into 2 places that took away property rights for hunting and fishing. I don't know if
I didn't mention that, but go ahead.
you didn't mention that, yeah. So there was an oversight in this last session that really dealt with property rights. So my hope is that we'll have a joint bill.
Well, tell me, what he's referring to, I did a sister bill, which basically is identical. I took his bill, drafted it, it will be filed in the House. If you pass the same bill in both chambers without any amendments, then we can do this in 3 days. And we're hoping to get this accomplished the first 3 days of session.
Right. We're not supposed to be that optimistic, but what do you think?
I'll be totally against that. You don't pass bills in 3 days.
I'm not gonna pass it, okay. Yes, particularly Senator Schumer.
Yeah.
But it should go through, I think it will. And then we can then have a debate about the hunting licenses and the fishing licenses and how that should work out and what other bills come out. But let's just fix what was overlooked before. And it's BR 15, because as soon as I heard that problem, I got home that night and my son gave me grief. Okay, he's living there. So okay, I put in the request, and it was one of the first ones they did. So there's a couple other things working on it. Certificate of need. I see Mary Ann's not here. Working with Mary Ann on that. I'm sort of approaching that from several different angles. One of them is to get rid of everything but the long-term care facilities, so essentially be Ohio and Indiana. That's one bill that may not go. On the other side, my goal is to get under 10. Again, when you get in here, you compromise these things. So if we can get down to below 10, and believe it or not, we may be able to get the Hospital Association to be on below 10. Okay, now that won't do all we want to do, but it's a step in the right direction. And that, because we have 32 services we regulate, which I used to say is the 4th most, was more than any state but Hawaii, New York, and West Virginia. But West Virginia just did away with CON, so now we're just up there with us, Hawaii and New York, right? You know, those great liberal states, that's where we exist in terms of the number of medical services. The other legislation, again, I'm talked to the KMA, they're supposed to be against this, is to actually give doctors' offices a real exemption. Under CON right now, it says doctor offices are exempt from CON. However, they're exempt, except they can't buy the equipment they need to perform the skills that they're licensed in. They can't buy, there's MRIs and scopes and this sort of stuff. You have to get a CON. So to make that just a real unqualified exemption. Doctor office, it says you're exempt, but you're not. And so just run another standalone bill. So I like to approach the same area with CON from 2 or 3 different angles. We may not get everything we want, but I'm pretty sure we're gonna not be up there with New York and Hawaii when this is over. So I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to do that. So that's one of the big push, probably the biggest push I'm doing on that. I've got another bill that, so 2 things that I don't know where it's gonna go, okay? Constitutional amendments that I've drafted. I haven't talked this up yet. I made a commitment to the sign man, Bill Kunkel, and also I thought about this ever since I did a honeymoon in the Cayman Islands down there, and the guy that was driving us around said, "We're not like you Americans. We actually own our own property. We don't have to rent it and pay property tax every year." Okay? And so I said, "Oh, that hurt." And I've thought about that for the last 48 years on that. And Bill said, "Hey, we need to get," so I'm gonna run a constitutional amendment on a full homestead exemption for everybody, okay? Now, you can clap, the likelihood that it's gonna get out is going to be tough, but it's a start. And so just run that see who has a heart attack, see what we can do. We'll have, so there's gonna be talk, but anyway, so I've drafted that and I will introduce that on that in a homesteading for residents that live in Kentucky, okay? We'll see what the financial impact on everybody is. But we need to have that discussion because it shouldn't just be older people getting a little bit of an exemption, because young kids are having a tough time owning their homes now, and you see some of these bills that come across for your property taxes tough. So that's what I'm thinking. The other thing is I'm real involved with a school choice amendment. And I don't know whether I'll be running it or somebody else will be running it. There will be a school choice amendment, I believe, that comes out. We'll see what it says, but I don't know how much the first thing is, what it's gonna be. We got the ed choice people, but it's, in my opinion, parents should have the right to choose, okay? That's where it starts out with parental rights. So I'm trying to get that in there, and I will, if that's not the chosen one, I would put an amendment in there that parents have a right to choose. And that's what I'm working on. And it could end up being the consensus one, or there could be another one, but I feel strongly about education. There's one other thing on education that I'm trying to work around. I'm vice chair of education, which means I'm just like every other member of education. But the workforce, essentially the workforce development, the alternative certification, one of the problems we have, one of the problems that I fought back in the day was the Educational Professional Standards Board that basically kept teachers, kept qualified individuals from teaching in the classroom because they had to have all this educational certification. But I've got a bill that says if you are qualified to do a dual credit instruction because you work for a community college or a university and you're teaching students dual credit, then you can be a certified teacher. Or if you're qualified as a technical school instructor, where you're qualified to teach welding and give a student a welding certificate, then that will be a qualification for your teacher certification. And the key on that is, right now, if I take 12 kids up to a welding class, I gotta have a teacher sit there to be the teacher of record, and the ADA doesn't go to the people that are teaching it. And part of this is to address the teacher shortage that we're gonna have with this for a long time, just because we got a shortage everywhere in people working. If we can get university professors or adjunct professors at community colleges teaching a lot of 11th and 12th grade dual credit and getting these kids so they got 2 years of college, we can push the other certified teachers down to the lower grades and help relieve some of the credit. So anyway, I got a bill to try to do that. It's not, we'll see how it goes. Again, that's a tough situation, but I really think it'll help solve the teacher shortage. It'll help get kids out in the workforce faster, which is really what we need to do. And make an education, if they're going to go the college rate, maybe we do a lot of dual credits, and the goal is you come out of high school with a dual credit and you can skip a year or two of college. That's it. So I'm pretty passionate about education. There's a number of other things on education, technology, but they haven't. I think I should probably leave it at that. I don't know how everybody else.
Okay, well, great comments. So what we're gonna do is open questions up to the room. Mike may have a question, but now I'm gonna ask people if you wanna ask a question, or if there's any kind of a bill that you would have interested, that you're interested, that you'd like to see introduced, you can certainly ask. But anyway, I see Mike has his hand up first. So Mike, is there a question you'd like to ask?
Well, thank you. Yes, there is, Eric. Well, you spent a lot of time before Jay got here about talking about the process being made more difficult by leadership, and speaking about the eliminating pre-filed bills, got 5 people in charge with enough power to do that. If they've got that much control, how are you going to do anything to change that?
Well, that's an excellent question, you know, but you need to, leadership, yeah, of course it is, right? You know, it's important to remember that leadership is a reflection of the members. They are elected by the members, and sometimes we don't want to admit that, but it's true. Leadership is a reflection of the members. And like I think it was Steve said, or someone said on this panel, we've had a change in the members. I've noticed in the Senate and the House both that we have more conservative members after this last election. So I would, you know, I wouldn't be surprised to see a more conservative leadership. But when you're asking about process, I want to bring up something because we're talking about passing bills in 3 days. That's a terrible idea. You know, if there's one thing we need to stand up for, it's the process. There's a reason why you have 2 readings required in each chamber, and each chamber is separate. And just because some lawyer found a loophole where they think they can do it in 3 days, why would we want to do that? We should have our readings in each house, and we shouldn't pass a bill in 3 days just because we think we can, and then have it challenged in the Supreme Court and probably get thrown out. If we can pass it in 3 days, we can pass it in 5 days and have the readings like we're supposed to in each chamber and not rush anything through. So I think it's important that we stick up for the process, not only with things we agree with, but things we disagree with. That's the only way we have any credibility. So this little thing about, you know, where we screwed up the hunting regulations, and we sure did screw them up, and we need to fix it as soon as possible, and thanks to Jay, and we're gonna do that, but we need to make sure we do it in a constitutional, deliberate manner, not just in 3 days because we think it looks good. I'm very passionate about that. But getting back to your original question, I do think that you're gonna see some changes, and you'd be surprised too, when you go to leadership and you talk to them, sometimes you can be successful at changing, especially if they know someone else is gonna run for leadership if they don't.
Well, let me jump in on what Mike was saying, or Mike's question too. You know, when you look at the House, they've only been in the majority since 2016. 2017, the Republicans took the majority. And it went from a slim majority of just a couple, I mean, maybe 3 or 4, to now there's an 80-20 majority. All of your leadership members, with the exception of one, are minority holdovers. So when the Republicans were in the minority, they were the ones in charge. They have a skill set of minority leaders. So look at what happened in our federal legislature. You had this fracture that the Republican Party has been dealing with for the last 4 years from Donald Trump. Donald Trump came in and he fractured the Republican Party. We have a new Republican Party, and we here in this room, we've grappled with it. We are what we want to be. I think we are probably the party of Trump more so than the past party. But we've not grappled with that in the State House. We've not grappled with that in the House of Representatives, and it's coming. And I think that that's going to be something you see. You may not see it this session, but you're probably going to see it next session. When more of the rhinos get taken out by more conservative members, you're going to have that seat change. And I think that's really, it may not be this session, but in a couple, we're going to flip it.
Okay, Deb?
What are you going to do in order to get school choice to where it needs to be in Kentucky, you've got to deflate the teachers' union. Indiana, I taught for 39 years in Indiana in the public schools, and we had a very powerful state union. Indiana was able to deflate that by passing the law that you didn't have to join the union, and so I quit because they didn't represent me, which I'm sure a lot of people did. You have a very powerful teachers union who puts out a lot of damaging propaganda, and I mean, so anyway.
Actually,
We did.
Did you do
you're
that?
talking about right to work, and
Yeah.
My first,
Oh, did you have that? Okay.
in 2017, when we first come in as the majority, we done that in the first 5 days. Passed that bill.
We did another one this session where we made it illegal for a union to take direct transfers out of your paycheck. So for public employees, so you can't, so now those monies that were directly being funneled into the unions, it's not happening anymore. You as a teacher have to cut that check to your union, which should cripple them.
They seem to have.
So we're doing some of the things that you're.
Okay,
you're
good,
asking.
good.
We're already done.
Okay, good.
We, that's a great point, Deb, and it became evident very quickly when it was under discussion in our education committee meetings early on that we were going to unwind how almost people opted into the union because they didn't opt out of it. So you actually have to opt out of it. You're almost automatically opted into it.
Yeah.
So it created such an intentional process, and it was a very upsetting time. So there was quite a number of people that were coming to our education committee testifying about how unfair and unreasonable and everything, but we passed the bill. And it's powerful. It upset quite a number of unions, not just the teachers union. It upset a number of unions. And my son is a union steelworker. So they made it very clear to me. And I said, well, why would you be worried about that? That's not a problem. Anybody can set up an automatic deduction from their bank account. But they have to set it up. And, you know, so we're the party of accountability. We're the party of transparency. And I think you said it well, Steve. This is becoming more and more known that we're going to hold our fellow leaders accountable. And Senator Schickel said it well. We vote them in. But, you know, we were kind of some of the new kids on the block too, so we weren't really up for election either, by the way, not necessarily. But there's a number of other aspects to the education that's almost hard to resist, and some of it came out just today. The results are not good. The high school students actually fell back again on achievement. And I feel so frustrated because I feel like economic development and your self-actualization comes with work, like that you actually work. And there was a point in time in the early 80s when basically more than 60% of our kids that were aged 16 to 21 were working. Now it's somewhere around 30%. But if you go to school and you don't really know why you're going to school and you're not, but you're less and less engaged, and no surprise, our kids are less engaged. But the academic results are not good. But we've had some very interesting testimony, and all of this testimony is public. So Kentucky is seeing that there's a lot of really clever ways to get kids engaged, and it's not just happening through the public school process. It's happening, but it's actually being paid for by public funds. Isn't that interesting? So we have some very interesting models happening throughout Kentucky that are being paid with public school dollars, but they're unique. So I think Kentucky didn't even realize it, but they have a little bit of school choice going on. Our homeschool numbers are rising. That's school choice. That's parents making choices. Now, do parents get those monies given to them? No. So, but we can see through the Keys work that Rawlings and Schickel are doing, and Jay has done a great job advocating for these dollars. These are some of the most academically successful kids, and we see that through the higher education numbers. So those are presented to us by EKU and UK, and today Thomas More shared some numbers, and so you're not hearing it from the public high schools, but you're hearing it from the higher education, how excellent these homeschooled kids are. So there's a lot of people that are paying a little more attention about the value of school, allowing parents to choose how they educate their children.
Another thing we heard today is the sad and pitiful truancy rates.
Oh.
I couldn't believe, I can't relate it right offhand, but.
And I don't know about homeschool kids. I don't know that homeschool kids are truant.
No.
It's a beautiful thing. That's right. But their numbers are rising. We have increasing decisions made by parents of how to school their kids, getting great results, and we have higher truancy rates on kids that really don't want to be there. You know, so the numbers are speaking pretty loud and clear. Change
That's
is
good,
afoot.
awesome. Oh, just the education, I was actually subbing in Fort Thomas when the last gubernatorial election was going on. And it's pretty sad the amount of power that, and the things that were going on in the schools and the propaganda that was coming through from the unions. And see, teachers don't quit because they told the lie that they will lose their jobs, and that is a big lie, and they believe it, so.
Senator Schickel?
Yes, sir.
7:00.
I'm so enthralled, I'm gonna stay a few more minutes.
Oh, we need to make him stay another term. Okay, now don't let him out.
Yeah.
Because he is the conscience of the Senate and probably actually an entire legislature. The comments he just made, gonna
What's
be
the
a
old
big
saying,
loss.
get 2 standing ovations when you come and when you leave?
Jan, you had a question?
I have two things. One is just a comment. A lot of homeschool parents do not want the money. So you really need to think about that. And there is a chasm in that the homeschool parents that are interested in money are a minority. Because as soon as you take government money, you are beholden to the government. And most of us don't want your money. We don't want our tax dollars back. Keep your hands off.
That's a great point.
So you really need to think about that, because that's a huge issue. We don't want the money.
I know,
Forget it.
you're exactly right.
Keep your
Jan.
money, and we want our autonomy. We don't want, as soon as I take your money, you're gonna tell me how to homeschool my child.
It's a great
The
point.
other thing is not about education. I'm sure Stacy will get on that in a second. I wanna talk about, you talked about, a Homestead Act to deal with the tax situation, and I know that's Bill Kunkel's bailiwick. I've heard that for years.
Yeah.
But how are we gonna fund our cities? Covington is millions of dollars in the hole because we don't have Fidelity anymore, because everybody at Fidelity is working from home. So they're not paying Covington taxes. They provided $1.8 million to us that we have lost this year. We can't function like that as a city. So if you take away my property taxes that I pay to Covington, which are exorbitant living in Covington, and you take away the taxes that we're losing millions of dollars, how are our cities gonna be funded? And I sound like Joe Meyer. I asked that because
I
we
heard
talked
you
about
two
that.
were drinking in a bar together.
But we talk about Joe, and we talk about that all the time. We've got to come up with a different way to fund our cities, because too many people are working from home. And it's not affecting Villa Hills, and it's not affecting Crescent Springs, it's killing Covington.
But you know, Dan, like in Boone County, for instance, like 10% of that goes, almost every, I barely get 10%. 90% of it goes to the stupid schools.
Yeah.
Okay, well, in Covington, I'm speaking for Covington, in Covington, we are losing millions of dollars because Fidelity employees do not work in Covington anymore, they work from home.
But you're,
We have to come up with something for the cities, because there are cities in Kentucky.
your question is the whole reason we need to run the bill so we can have the debate. Because
Yeah.
we've gotta figure it out.
And that's why you
But
need
before you ask the
pre-concepts
question,
so
you
people
need
can
to know
see
the
it.
answer.
Well, and part of that is the homestead, so you have two different forms of local government tax. You have
Right.
occupational tax,
Exactly.
which is the Fidelity side.
Right.
And you have a property tax, which is a different.
Right.
You also have, you have a real property and a tangible property tax on this side. So it's not that simple, right? That fixing this issue is gonna impact that issue. You've also gotta push down to the state level for local option sales tax, which I'm not a fan of.
I was gonna say, we don't want, since
Right.
Marty's always been against the loss.
Right, right, and so it's a whole tax reform issue that needs to be talked about, because where else are you gonna get it from? We're cutting income tax to zero. So what needs to happen is we need to start looking at restraining government spending, and that's something that we have not done.
I'm not saying that we should tax anything, for heaven's sakes. All I'm saying is that this needs to be considered, because the landscape has changed on the way that revenue is produced right now. It's killing your cities, like Covington. Thank you.
Okay. Stacy?
I have a question about when people are running for office, you have to meet certain qualifications. That's always been a thing. I'm wondering if we can get a bill that disqualifies you from running for office if you've been found violating the Constitution. And if that is the case, that you also can't use tax dollars to bail your butt out of the case. Hence Andy Bashir, he was found to have violated the Constitution, but he's running for office again. That seems wrong. Like, how are you even allowed to do that? So is that a bill or a constitutional amendment or something in qualifications to even run for office?
Yeah, we paid his fine.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
so if that's and I'm playing the devil's advocate, and if that's your position, that if someone violated the Constitution.
Found guilty.
You
have to go through the court.
Everyone on this panel is ineligible to run.
You guys were found guilty of violating
I've got it.
Constitution.
Each and every one of us, we all voted on it was Senate Bill 64, which was a change of venue statute. It went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, you guys violated the Constitution. It's an unconstitutional bill. The law's invalidated. And so part of that is process. And part of that is the checks and balances of government. And so when the governor runs afoul, it's our job to rein him in. And when we run afoul, it's the Supreme Court's job to rein us in. And so I don't think it's as cut and dry as that somebody violated the Constitution, you made a mistake, you're out. I do agree with you that if public officials, there are already provisions where you can be held personally liable. So if you're on city council and you violate statutes or you improperly pass things, you can be held personally liable. Somebody can go and find you liable and foreclose on your house. I mean, that can happen to you. So there's already provisions like that in place. I think really the check to these people that are running amok on our system is to vote them out of office. I mean, just get rid of them. That's what we've been successful doing here in Northern Kentucky.
Kind of give you a little bit better, or not a better, but an example of what's actually happened. I'm the co-chair of the Government Contract Review Committee. Our committee, we review every contract, every dollar spent. Our job, we're a statutory committee, we meet every month, we review that. If we deny a contract, the way the law works right now, it goes to the finance cabinet secretary and he can override us. So somebody who's appointed by the governor can override what our committee says on a contract. I have a bill right now that would take that authority away from the governor and be able to give it to the treasurer. And we're still meeting the guys that our state constitution says there's a separation of executive versus legislative branch. So by it going to the treasurer instead of the governor's cabinet secretary who's appointed, the treasurer's elected, we still are conforming to what the Constitution says. An executive branch elected official gets to review our decision. But what it will do, it will put a little bit more teeth into it. And I bring that up because that's in court right now. And and if the Supreme Court comes back and says, they could come back and say that my bill's unconstitutional. If they do that, then I would be in violation just like you are. And all we're trying to do is to keep somebody who's not elected by the people from making the final decision. I hope that helps as far as.
I mean, I think there's a difference between writing a bill and you guys doing your job versus what Andy did, knowingly violating the Constitution and affecting everyone in Kentucky, our finances, our liberties.
Well, I totally agree with you, and I understand your position, and I don't disagree with your position.
Right.
I was just trying to give you an example of how it's not, like Steve was saying, it's not as cut and dry.
Right.
And I don't think that bill was unconstitutional. I think the Supreme Court's wrong.
Right.
And so,
Right.
can I now kick them out?
Right.
Mike, do you have a question?
Pretty much everybody in here knows that I rarely agree with Bill Kunkel on anything. But when it comes to the property tax issue, when Bill and I were talking, we discussed this quite a lot. And I have to agree with him 100% that I think it's the most dangerous tax in the country.
Yeah.
That they're gonna tax the small farmer out of existence. They're already doing it. They're gonna, it's just a disaster waiting to happen, and it's happening. Can't there be some sort of consumption tax to replace the dollars that are lost if you eliminate the property tax?
That's the discussion we will all have for the next couple of years, I believe.
Yeah, that's local option sales
Yeah.
tax, I mean, that's, do you allow an additional tool in the local government's tool chest to tax? I'm not for it.
I'm not, I'm dead set against it, and I'll tell you why. That is just an out for local government to raise tax.
Yep.
Those councilmen and commissioners are elected. If they got the balls, they can raise taxes, but they won't do it because they know they're getting voted out of office. So what do? Is say, we're gonna put it on the ballot. Well, when they put it on the ballot, what's happened? We have to take off work and go door to door and to try to defeat the daggone thing. And people gotta go to work. We live in a representative republic, not a democracy, and if they don't want to take responsibility for raising taxes, let somebody else run. But that's a red herring for them to try to raise taxes, number one, and remove the blame from themselves. And when you put something on the ballot, people like you all then gotta go out and work hard to defeat it. Well, we got enough to do without doing that. So I just think it's a totally bad idea.
I completely agree, John, because Eric and I know that in our county, our judge executive hasn't ever met a tax that he didn't like, and he would raise it. And, you know, that was one of the biggest things that when I ran for county commissioner that pissed them off was when I published, and Eric helped with this, the fact that they raised taxes every single year. And they wanted to hide that. They didn't want the accountability. So again, I think the best way to address taxes is to cut spending. There's so much money in all levels of government that is wasted, and that's the way to address
And the best way
getting
to
rid.
cut spending is to elect people with that mindset.
Yes, agreed.
Every citizen wants government to cut spending. How long's it been going on?
Well, to be clear, they
But-
don't,
but-
because if,
But how do you replace a property tax like Jan's talking about? I'm not an advocate for Joe Meyer either, but, how do you replace that if you eliminate it? And I think it should be eliminated.
Well, the tax didn't go away. The occupational tax didn't go away.
The people went away.
The people went away. And so because people work from home now, Covington has a $7 million hole in their budget.
There goes our conscience.
So to fill in Covington's gap, it's a legislative fix that says, wherever the principal place of the business is, or wherever the home base of those employees is where the tax is collected at.
Yeah.
You know, because those people went out of Covington and they went over into Erlanger or Fort Thomas or Florence, Florence got the occupational
I'm
tax.
just using her as an example.
Yeah.
I'm against property tax.
Yeah.
Any property tax.
Even personal.
On the car, on the house, any of your possessions, I'm against it.
Yeah.
well,
You
and-
eliminate it, how do you replace it?
but what we need to, not forget, because today is November 1st, and thank you for bringing it up, Jan, getting out and sign waving, we need to replace the governor.
Yes.
We need to replace the governor, because our job is even more difficult with the current governor, because you need the governor to signal less spending, and you're not hearing that from this governor. He is not signaling less government spending. He's constantly looking for methods to spend more, spend more, spend more, spend more. I mean, we are exhausted by the spend more mentality.
They do.
He is, and it's November 1st. So I am so glad that we're here, but all of you all are engaged, and we actually need all of you all, including ourselves, to be texting at least 10 to 20 of every one of our friends and remind them to vote. And wave some signs. We just applied a 10-foot sign in Campbell County to remind everybody whose their ballot who's on the ballot and get out there and vote, because we've got to vote out this governor. We really need the signal of, let's use your hard-earned taxpayer dollars a little differently. And it's gotta start there. And then when Jay introduces this bill, it is going to be a shock, which is good, because you love committee meetings that they're gonna review something like this, because that is where the great ideas come. And then you're able to come there and share your great ideas, and it really, and then Jerry, you can come and share what you've seen to be successful, and those things really are heard, because then the more support comes to Frankfurt and gets more articulate, the bill gets cleaner, the process is a very good process, it's a tough process, I've learned, but it's a good process. Even though our conscience is not sitting here, he's right, and it takes time. Because that second reading can sometimes bring as much dissent as you had on the first reading. But it's good, because then your result is one that we're all gonna feel pretty good about. All of us that care about how the taxpayer dollar is spent. Yeah.
Well, one of the disappointing things that we discovered is the Republicans want to increase spending, build programs, they don't talk about cutting anything. The establishment class. So that's been hugely disappointing. If you mention it, I mentioned it to one, and he said, well, if we could just pause it for a couple of years. They just don't introduce any kind of cut in spending. It's, right, Steve, it's been amazing. They just want to grow government.
Now you talk about, we talk so much about public education and how we gotta fix public education, and all we do is we continue to pass bills to create more red tape for our schools, more unfunded mandates. Government, state government isn't funding that. You're funding it at the local level. And so we continue to just make people do more and more and more down there. We don't take anything away. We had a bill, Jared Bowman out of Louisville filed it, that would require financial impact statements on any education bill that came through to be filed. I mean, that's a critical piece of legislation. It died. It just died. Never got a hearing, went nowhere. That's part of the problem. You talk about how do we fix these problems. Well, if you cut property tax to zero, you're still gonna have some type of government tax. How do we fund the roads? We don't fund the roads through general fund dollars, we fund it through a gas tax. So you have that specific consumption tax that's targeted to that thing.
Right, I know.
Look at Erlanger. What Erlanger did, when I was on city council, we cut property taxes and beyond just me, they've cut it for maybe 7 to 9 years under Mayor Fetty and Mayor Hermes. They continue to cut property taxes, but revenues have gone up, right? And I think they did a presentation to you guys. You all know this. They did a presentation on that, and that's because the rising tide lifts all boats. And so as we continue to bring economic activity in, economic investment in, lower taxes and make it a more competitive business climate, you're gonna see more investment come in, and so those dollars are gonna turn over in our economy more. When you talk about bringing in manufacturing jobs to our state, for every one manufacturing job, there's a study done, for every one manufacturing job, you have 5 support jobs. That's your teachers, your lawyers, your accountants, your guy at the grocery store. That's what's gonna happen. So we need to create an economic environment in Kentucky, lower property taxes, lower income taxes, make it more attractive for people to come in, to invest, and then we're gonna see those taxes rise, those revenues rise on the whole, and that's part of the solution to that issue, if that makes sense.
And primaries are so important. You gotta focus on primaries. That's where the Republicans we have in office now, and we gotta clear some of them out. So
We haven't cut spending, and we've had a Republican majority.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I saw another question back
I
there.
have actually 2, and I'll try to be real quiet, guys, I'm sorry. One, you kind of hit on, the legislators wanted JCPS to be, I've also talked to the auditors about Boone County. You talk about wasteful spending, our educators are crazy. Panorama's a big one. They're paying money so they can get information on our kids. But anyway, that was my comment, you already hit it. The other one is election integrity. I've not heard anything about election integrity.
Yeah.
Is anyone working?
On anything?
Have you heard through the grapevine?
Getting rid of votes.
So one of the things that I hope to work on is to, and I've had some discussions, and this is early, and it's gonna take some time, but is to require all software on
any machine to be openly viewable, if not open source, than to be either copyrighted or patented so they can be viewed by everybody. Okay, so you can actually look at the source code, because that is how, what we do every day with our bank transactions, HTTPS, all that's open, okay? And you can see it all, and we ought to be able to see all our election software, period. And so I will also work on that. I'm not sure what we get through, but that's what I will work on. And that's what I am working on right now.
Yeah, we really like the
What?
paper ballots.
Adrian
Well,
Southworth, I don't know enough.
we have
That's
paper
what I was
ballots that are
wondering.
required.
Adrian Southworth said there's some districts that they're gonna be auditing and looking at paper ballots, and she acted encouraged by that.
Good.
It followed up on the bills that she had filed a couple of years ago, and she said basically they're doing that now. They're taking credit for it, and she doesn't get the
Yeah,
credit.
the
one day
paper
voting,
ballots
that
are
would be nice.
coming, okay? And how you audit it is the question, but I think that's gonna happen.
Thank you.
Your ability to audit it apparently is an issue.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a little issue with auditing.
Yeah, I think that's gonna happen. I don't think that's.
We were talking about at the beginning, it said that leadership had called the county party chair to get you guys primary. How did you guys find out about that? Because if that's the case, we've got an issue with our party chairs at the county level too, if they're okaying that. I mean, if they're saying, like, if they're ratting out leadership and saying, hey, there's the call right out for leadership, just so you guys are aware, then that's good, because they're ratting them out. But I mean, if they're going along with it, we need to figure out what to do about party leadership at the county level too.
So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, so without outing anybody, that wasn't a Northern Kentucky party chair. This was one, it was about 6 legislators were on the call, maybe 7. All out Rawlings, he was on the call. And one of the reps had volunteered that their party chairman had received a call from leadership and that they were actively looking to recruit primary. It was one of them that got kicked off the committees along with us. So they're out looking. I know that, I know House leadership's looking for somebody for me. I mean, I've had it told directly to me. So they're out looking, and, you know, I'm not, if they call Chet Hand, I'm not worried about that, right? You know, I think Chet's gonna be fine. Shane and I have a good enough working relationship that Shane, I think, would tell me if he knew something was coming. He's a lobbyist too, so he's got a vested interest in some issues we align on, CON being one of those. So, we'll see. But it's not them that I'm worried about.
But you know, here's the thing, I think we need to be really aware that we're working very hard to get Daniel Cameron elected. And if we're doing a really good job in the legislature, then Steve Doan might get a job in Daniel Cameron's team. So it's very important that you're looking for my replacement and for Jay's replacement and for Steve's replacement. It is very important that we're looking to replace ourselves. It really is. Because we don't want, we just had a senator that was hired by Tennessee because Ralph Alvarado did a pretty good job in Kentucky. So Tennessee hired him. So in February, he had to be replaced and he went to Tennessee and
He was terrible.
He was awful, he got run out. He left because he got run out.
And he was instrumental in killing the
Well,
ban vaccine mandates at the time. Yes, he was. I absolutely.
And I apologize. What I recognize though is, were we ready for his replacement? Because Campbell County was asked too. So we do need to be looking for good leaders. We do need to be looking for good future leaders. It's very important. And I just wanted to throw that back out there. I don't like that people are having conference calls against Steve, and I don't like that there are conference calls against me either. But I have to answer to Campbell, Pendleton, Bracken. I have to answer to my constituents. We all do. But we do need to be looking for good leaders that can replace us in the future. We need to be filling the seats in our library boards, in our school boards, for gosh sakes. We need, and those folks in our city councils, those folks could potentially be our future representatives and our senators.
The most immediate is Senator Shickles, right?
Right, we need to be, So I just don't wanna, like, be critical of people having conversations like that. That's okay. Hey, we got thick skin. We're okay. We know he works his tail off. We know he's on the right track. He's actually not that worried about those phone calls. But the reality is, we do need to be looking for good people, and then invite them to be on a board position. Get them on a school board, get them on a you know what I'm saying? It's so important. Well, I see it now more than ever. We're looking at some real problems at Northern Kentucky University. These folks were appointed by the governor. But you could put a buzz in the governor's ear about who you might want him to appoint, especially if the governor's Daniel Cameron. So be looking for these good people, because the governor has a lot of people that they need to appoint. But there's a lot of people that are gonna be on the ballot next year that need to be elected into these positions too. So let's be looking for good, conservative-minded, fiscally responsible, limited government people to get into all of the, I know you are, and I appreciate that.
So I'd be fine with leadership trying to line up pipelines for when it comes time for people to go to higher positions. I wish that. It's clearly not what's happening though. I just gotta wonder, like, when was the last time that leadership was actively looking to replace incumbents who have not indicated their intent to retire or to move up to a different position? That doesn't seem to have ever happened to my immediate knowledge. Seems like it's being targeted directly at the members who were removed from their committees because, as Representative Suzanne Miles said, they were doing it to punish them for pushing the caucus too far to the right. She said directly in I believe it was a 5th congressional district Lincoln Reagan Day dinner. I don't know which one it was, but it just seems like the goal is to punish the Tea Party for actually pushing for conservative values. Like, if that's what was actually happening, I'd be okay with that if we're actually talking about a pipeline. But Steve, have you indicated your intent to move to a different position to leadership?
Nope. Nope, I'm staying right where I'm at. I worked in the executive branch, right? And I literally reported my boss to the governor because he took a state vehicle and drove it to New York State and then to Iowa and then back to Kentucky. Then every day, for personal use, for every day he drove from the Western time zone to Frankfurt on your dime. $30,000 per year. This man took a state vehicle and used it for personal transportation. And I reported that to the governor, and you know what happened? They threatened to fire me, and they tried to send me home. And so I'll never go back to that executive branch, because I'm going to sit in the legislature, and I'm going to make sure that I don't care if it's Daniel Cameron, I don't care if it's Chris Weiss, I don't care if it's T.J. Roberts. You're gonna do your job, because the legislature gets to tell you what to do. And so that's the important thing. These people down in Frankfurt, these guys, they just want to sit down there and to have the power and to have the authority. When I ran and primaried Adam Koenig, I said, these people in Frankfurt have too much power, and it's time to take it and to give it back to you all. My goal is to do not a whole lot as a state rep, because I want to turn the power back to you. I want to repeal laws, I want to take things off the books, and I want to make sure that you guys are more free. That's what this is about.
Amen.
I'd like to give you a personal example of what Mr. Roberts is talking about. Several years ago, I ran against Suzanne Miles for conference chair, and I've been punished ever since. Me getting kicked off the committee this time, it's not the first time I've had a round with them, not the first time, or the last time I will probably be punished by this group of people. So that happened. That's a fact. I can prove it to anybody. So his statement is absolutely right. The problem, training, I was in the military. You train your replacement. There's nothing wrong with that. You seek out people of like mind and you train them and you go to the next level. I agree with that concept. But the problem we got, and the biggest problem we have, especially in the House, what the leadership's doing is completely and utterly inappropriate, because they're not targeting people for ideas and thoughts and trying to make the party move or the conservative movement move. They're targeting somebody just because they didn't like what he stood for. And that takes the voice away from the people.
Another disappointment I had, I didn't realize, being naive, that they chose all these candidates. Like, there were 20 new people when we were in, and for the House I'm speaking at least. I didn't realize they chose all of these people. So I found out later that the leadership went to them and asked them to run, And so they're beholden to the people that asked them to run. So that's why they didn't like Doan and Proctor and I, because we weren't in their system and we knocked out their friends, their good buddies, their best friends. I was told we beat their best friends.
Oh, we'll do it again.
Look, the leadership PAC, the leadership has a PAC, right? Kansas Campaign Finance. I come to you guys and I beg you for $50 and I'm grateful for it and I need every single $50 you give me. But leadership has a PAC. You guys are maxed out. You guys can give $2,100, that's the max. Leadership can give unlimited money to a candidate. They have a PAC, unlimited money. So in my primary, leadership, the people that kicked me off my committees, gave Adam Koenig $10,000 against me. So when I went down to Frankfurt, I knew they spent personally $10,000 personally. They spent $10,000 of their leadership PAC to keep me out. I called him in the general election. I said, I've got a Democrat. People are saying she's got a chance. Can I have $2,000? Can I have $1,000? Can I have any money to help me get over the line? And I got none. I mean, that's what it's about. It's about they use their money and their power to handpick people.
What about your idea, Eric? You have a good idea.
Oh, well, I'm gonna get to other people's questions. Chris, did you
Well,
get a question?
what's it gonna take to get a constitutional amendment to put our Supreme Court Court of Appeals so we know what we're electing? I mean, we have a pro-abortion, far-left radical that's representing Thomas Massey's district on the Kentucky Supreme Court. That is a consequence of voter ignorance. How do we get that amendment on the ballot for people to vote?
That's a good point.
We filed the bill. I mean, we'll do it. I'm in.
Also school board races?
Yeah, school board, council, everything.
We had.
There's a different lobby that's against that, and I'm not disagreeing with that as a policy measure, because actually Senate leadership tried to run a bill to do that last session. I don't know how that got torpedoed. You guys would know the sausage about what happened with that, but like, there was some drama over the school board stuff. I think it was probably because the Republicans and the conservatives wanted them to be nonpartisan in Lexington and Louisville, and whereas the conservatives probably wanted it to be transparent up here and in other places, and I don't know how that all got done.
It was House Bills 50 and Senate Bill 50, and it would have killed partisan elections. So when you get down to those school board and those local, they're Republican running for 6 seats, and so you can't pull that straight ticket. And so you would have destroyed straight ticket voting, which would be really bad for the Republican elections. And then you have a powerful lobbying arm of the League of Cities, right? You have taxpayer-funded lobbyists, League of Cities, and KCO, who didn't want that to happen. And so they came in and lobbied and killed the bill.
So that's another bill. I know Rayborn and Maddox have sponsored it to kill taxpayer-funded lobbying. What's it going to take to get that through? Because that is the root of all evil.
It is. That is what I hope comes up this time.
We'll file the bill.
Yeah, it will definitely be filed.
Rawlings, I think, co-sponsored it. I co-sponsored it last session. We'll keep fighting that fight.
Our co-sponsored.
Yeah.
Did it get
I'm supportive of it.
No, you co-sponsored.
I know I did, but
Come on.
Sorry, Mark co-sponsored it.
thanks for taking that for me.
Did it not get out of the committee of committees, or did it not get out of leadership? What happened?
Didn't go that far.
The biggest problem we have, and we've touched on it here earlier, and I think we touched on it before, Mr. Leach and Mr. Roberts got here, but the way, when we took, our bills are no longer assigned.
Right, so it
to a
never got out of
committee.
leadership, that's
So-
what
But it got assigned to a committee, it got assigned to the A&R committee, which is the House Bill committee.
Well, and anything with a revenue automatically, that's the only one. Is if you have a revenue, if you touch revenue, automatically it's on A&R, then
But I do, like, Steve mentioned earlier, there's gonna be a change. I mean, the change will happen after this next election when we can elect the leadership. But when we elect leadership, we also set the rules for the next 2 years of what we operate under. And there's a lot of us, and I've been there, I'm going into my 8th year, but just with the way things have happened and transpired over the last 2 years, I've learned a lot, and I've really learned how important setting them rules are. And you will see a change. And I mean, I rely on my legal friends and my attorneys to explain things to me, because I'm not an attorney. But now that I know and I understand, and I'm not the only one, there's a lot of us in our caucus, you'll see some of these, hopefully, we're gonna see some of them change. And when that happens, then we'll have a little bit more opportunity and a little bit more tools in our toolbox to make some of these bills move. But our hands are kinda tied right now.
Who's up for election and leadership?
Hold on, we're pretty much, we're out of time. We're actually over time. John indicated earlier that he had a question, so, let's have John ask his question, and then we'll thank everyone for having such a great, this has been just an awesome meeting, and I think everyone's learned a lot. But John, why don't you go ahead?
Well, my question is more of a statement. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Yes. You know why I'm thanking you is because this is government. And as a former government teacher, it makes me a very happy man when I see people discussing the issues honestly and openly and trying to solve the problems of the country in a godly, principled way. And I've had the good fortune, the gift of, in many ways, of doing a lot of videos, thousands of them. And I have done this campaign in Campbell County, Kenton County, Boone County. And they're all on YouTube. I filmed this whole thing tonight, and it would all be on YouTube before the morning, because it'll take me all night to load it up. And what I ask you to do is to take it, watch it, and/or share it, because the secret to democracy and republic in our Constitution is when meetings like this can be shared with other citizens who cannot get out or will not go out. But yet we can touch them through Facebook, through where I have 5,000 friends on one Facebook page and 1,400 on another one, and the YouTube channel. And people can see and learn and grow that normally couldn't hear and be here tonight, and see intelligent leaders, which we have here, that have given their time and their energies to stand up for godly principles and the Constitution and the love of helping others. So I thank you for that very much. And you make me an 80-year-old man that's very happy.
Jay has something else.
Final statement is my church is reading. We're doing Block 2 treaties. We just finished City of God on government and how things are. The government's not supposed to be in the churches like this governor did, but the churches in America are supposed to be involved in government.
Amen.
Go out this next week and get your churches involved in government, walking for a godly man.
Amen.
And somebody who would shut them down.
Right.
Okay? That's what it's about. Don't let them forget. Get them involved. Let's go out and turn this around. Okay?
Can I make one comment as well?
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
As scary as it is to think of Andy having another 4 years, he doesn't have a whole lot of power. Now, again, I've been working hard, especially on social media, for Daniel Cameron. The scarier race is the race for Attorney General. You have a farmer who is being funded by George Soros. And I think people have seen what's happened when he's gotten attorney generals and prosecutors elected. They will turn the office of the attorney general against us. And so please get out and tell people they cannot vote for Stephenson. She's gonna be just like
She's
the
no
attorney
kin.
generals that are, I mean, they sued, Soros's attorney generals are suing the gun manufacturers to try to put them out of business. They're the ones behind all of these fake charges against Trump. So that race is highly, highly important that we get out and make sure that George Soros doesn't have, control of our Attorney General's office or our governor's office, because he's funding Andy too. So again, this is an important election. People need to understand that. Put stuff on social media, make calls, knock on doors, call your friends, text them, but we have to win or we're gonna lose our state too. So,
My YouTube channel is Travels with Dr. John Stephenson, Stephenson.
This is our last meeting of the year. If you're not getting the weekly Tea Party blast, leave your email in the back, and you'll know when our next meeting is, which is January.
Good job.
You did a good job.
I love you. Thanks for all your work.
All they're doing